I've been writing children's books and trying to get them published. But I've been encouraging kids to go with the flow and all these things. And publishers are fearful. I wrote this book about undertow, how my mom, when I was a kid, she actually encouraged us to go with the undertow at the ocean, and that we would pop up and the wave would bring us back. And, publishers are writing me rejection letters saying, we can't really encourage kids to jump in the water and go with the undertow and stuff like that. So my question is, I'm completely in love with how these books are coming out, and I keep writing them and I stick them aside and they're stacking up. I even have an illustrator now who is sort of like, where are we going to go with this? Like, why aren't we getting any bites? And, I'm completely okay with just loving them and letting them be there. But I also realize that I have to be proactive and keep sending them out, blah, blah, blah. So that's my dilemma. Do you have any words of wisdom for me?
Go with the undertow. You know that feeling of coming into alignment and what you are writing beginning to flow? Mm-hmm. You know the feeling of knowing that you want to write, not having something filling your mind, and then the idea beginning to come and being so powerful that it just takes you with it. So you know the feeling then of lining up. You know the feeling of releasing resistance relative to the writing. So now what you're wanting to do is overlay that same visceral, emotional sensation over, in other words, there is the idea of writing the book, and that part is coming easily to you. Now there is the idea of finding someone or allowing someone to find your book, and we want you to understand that it's the same process for that part of it as it was for the writing part of it. So when you think about this stream and what you've been hearing us talking about today, and you say, I've written some books, and they are really good books. I really feel good about my books. Can you feel how in the flow you were? And can you feel how then when you say, however, I'm meeting resistance from publishers who don't get it or who think it's risky. Can you feel what's happening to you? And what we want you to understand is that when you have a good book, and you do, and you are knowing that it is, then you turn and you allow universal forces to cause the rendezvous that are what you think you need. When you say I need to be more proactive, we say so many people are proactively paddling upstream. And if you can be going with the flow and proactive, then not only is it exhilarating, but it produces things fast. But so what you want to ask yourself is, how does this thought that I'm thinking right now feel? And for the most part, you just need to relax. We tell people who have written many books that the best thing that you can do to get yourself in the vibrational place where the next logical step will happen with your book is to keep writing books. And the reason that we say that is because you're wanting the juices to flow. And if you are a writer that is writing good books, and you are, and the juices are flowing, and that's what's got your undivided attention, then you're not doing anything in your proactive endeavor that's messing up what you've already got going. So just relax in this. Begin talking about, look down the road a little bit. Look down the road and imagine being in the bookstore and seeing several of your books there. Look down the road and imagine people talking to you about the benefit. Look down the road and imagine someone even saying to you, my child was caught in an undertow. And of course, no one wants to ever be caught in an undertow. Nobody's going and deliberately looking for them. But my child, thanks to your book, knew what to do, knew to relax. Jerry's father, who was a sailor, told him the same thing, that people, they're fighting the undertow that causes them exhaustion, and that if they will understand that the current is going to take them and they will not fight the current, eventually the current will release them, and once it is released, then they can make a new decision. It's perfectly viable information. It's information that everyone should be taught who is going anywhere near the ocean. And so just because this publisher doesn't know it and is more worried about lawsuits than about doing something that is worthwhile, it's not the right publisher for you, that's all. But the right one is there. So it's just a matter of relaxing and letting the universe bring you and them together. When you think about yourself, the feeling that you have, is the feeling, I'm an unpublished author of really good books, or is the feeling, I'm an author of really good books?
It's that I'm an author of really good books.
And yet, that's not really the way you presented yourself here. And we know that you're here wanting to work the kinks out of it, but we want you to sort of give some thought to that. Am I an author of really good books, or am I an unpublished author? Because the way you feel is what's next. There are so many people, haven't you noticed, that there are a handful of people that seem to get all of the starring roles, and so much talent out there.
Yeah.
And people think, well, it's because they've been discovered, and so they're in that small pool that is being chosen from. And we say it is far less about people knowing about the pool and selecting from it, and it is so much more about the way the people in that pool feel. It's about what you're radiating from where you are, you see. And so say things to yourself like, now think in terms of it's upstream or it's downstream. It doesn't feel good or it does feel good. So say things to yourself and stop as you say them, think them or say them, and then stop and think about how they feel. And ask yourself, is there resistance in it? And if there is there a way of me talking the resistance down so that it softens and I turn in the stream a little bit? So you say something like, I have a pile of books. You were rather dramatic about this. I've got good books stacked up now.
They're stacking up.
They're stacking up. And my illustrator is even noticing that they're stacking up and beginning to give me discouraging words. Now, that was upstream if we've ever heard anything upstream. So then you say, finding an illustrator was a really good thing because the illustrator is helping me to define my characters in a more vivid way.
She was amazing. When I saw what she did, I was like, I went and bought cigars for everybody. I was like a daddy.
All right, so
it was amazing.
So feel how that statement, as you focused upon your illustrator in that way, feel how relaxing that was. Feel how going with the current. Feel how well that fits with what you have in mind. And then think about the other statement. I've got an irritated illustrator that's not all that happy about illustrating for books that never get published. Feel how that felt, and then stop that. We're not kidding you. We've been saying for a long time that unless you're doing that thing you do that keeps you from allowing it, it will happen. And so that's the thing. A writer, above most people on the planet, knows that you're writing down the road. In other words, how often do you jump into the middle of the story somewhere other than at the beginning of it? In other words, you're way, 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 way down the road. And so what we want you to do is to begin to write a story. Go home today and do this. It will help you. And you're right on the brink of this. Write a story, a very short story, about the successful launching of your children's series. In other words, write that story. And let the hard part in the beginning be very brief.
There was a stack of books, and then that's it.
An ominous stack of books that was so tall it blocked the sun. Good.
We're done, right?
The story goes something like, I had an idea, and the idea was so powerful within me that I could not let go of it. And as I let it flow, it began to take shape on the page. And as I read what was written, it was pleasing to me because not only was it delightful to read, but it seemed meaningful to me on many levels. It was as if it was something that I was being called toward. And once I started moving toward it, it felt good to move toward it. And so I let it flow through me onto the page, and it felt good in the doing of it. And then I thought about it, and I realized the value of what I had going on, and then I decided that I was going to make it happen. And it seemed that every effort that I made at making it happen, I seemed to be getting in my own way. And the story that was fun and flowing and felt so good suddenly became a sort of burden. It was an albatross that I began carrying around, and I came to not really even like this story anymore because it represented my own inability to achieve something that I really wanted, which seemed the opposite of what I was teaching. And then one day I decided to just stop trying so hard. I decided to let the story carry me. I decided to let the story take on a life of its own and be the successful example that I was wanting to live. And as the story began to explain itself to me, it said, life is supposed to be good. Life is supposed to be fun. It said, there is a stream that flows, and everything that I want is within this stream. It is a life-giving stream. It is a stream that was given birth to long before I came into this physical body, but it is a stream that has been dramatically enhanced since I've been in this physical body. It is the stream of life, but it is not only a stream of living, it is a stream of living in joy. And once I got my eyes fixated on that stream and where it was going and all of the possibilities that were downstream, I began to let go of my worry about what wasn't happening, and I began to recognize all of the wonderful things that were happening. And somehow, one day, don't know how it happened, don't even know what I did to make it happen, but somehow I felt myself let loose. And when I did, everything in my experience began to flow for me. Money began coming from all unimaginable places. People that I've never met before began flowing into my experience. My life began taking on a shape and form the likes of which I had only dreamed about or maybe written about in my story. And now I began to be the liver of the dream that I had only written about. I began to understand the reason for my story. I began to understand that all I have to do is write it, and the universe will figure out how to deliver the details of it to me. And once I got that, now I'm floating free again. That's the story that you're wanting to tell. That's the story that everyone's wanting to hear. That's the story of your life here on planet Earth. And there is no story that you can't write. There is no story that you do not have the ability to write, and there is no story that you write that the universe doesn't have the ability to deliver. You get to write the characters in. Write in the hard-nosed publishers. Write in the ones that don't know what they're doing. Write in the ones that, and hasn't every successful book got a long stream of those? Oh yeah, it was turned down, it was turned down, it was turned down, it was turned down, it's turned down, and now it's successful in all ways. So write your own stories on all subjects and trust that the universe has the goods to deliver. It does.